Okay, here's the problem we just left off on. Now we're going to look at a couple, or at least one fraction problem. With fractions, you guys have to have common denominators. You can make a common denominator be 8, but the easiest thing to do would be to make it be a 4. So this one is not going to change. It's still going to be negative 3/4. Plus, this one changed. It went from being a 2 to a 4. So you multiplied by 2, so you have to multiply the top by 2, which gives you a negative 2. Now it says I owe somebody $3 and I owe them 2 more, so I owe them a total of $5. Keep my denominator. So my answer is negative 5/4. Remember, when you're adding fractions, keep the denominator, add or subtract the numerators. The next ones are evaluating questions, so we're just plugging this in. So we have negative 7.1 plus negative 4.3. It says I owe $7.10 and I owe another $4.30. So all together, same signs, I owe $11.40. Next problem here, I have negative 2 plus negative 7.1. Again, I owe somebody $2 and I owe them another $7.10. Line up your decimal points. There's a decimal after the 2, decimal after the 7. They have the same sign, so I'm adding them together. I owe somebody $9.10. The other rule for today is subtraction. The easiest thing to do is to not come up with new rules, but just use the addition rules. So the way we're going to use the addition rules is we're going to change our signs to plus the opposite. That's what I say. So what that means is that a minus a positive becomes plus a negative, or a minus a negative becomes plus a positive. Let's look at examples of this. Other teachers may have explained it a different way to you. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the subtraction sign, I'm going to change it to a plus sign, and then right after it I'm putting the negative. I'm not going outside of my little circle here. I'm staying between the two numbers. So now what I really have is I have $2 and I owe $6. Well, I don't have enough to cover what I owe, so I still owe $4. You think about subtraction because you have two different signs. You keep the sign of the 6. The next example here I have negative 1 minus 4, so let's do that. This is the sign I'm changing because it's a subtraction. I'm going plus, I'm changing it to plus, change it right after it, negative. So now I have negative 1 plus negative 4. So I owe $1 and I owe $4. So if you think about it, you have the same sign, you're really thinking about adding those, keeping the sign, you owe $5 altogether. Next one, this one's very simple. We don't even need to change it to plus the opposite. I know the answer is 5, but I'm going to show you how it still works. Change the sign to plus, and then right after it, put a negative. Now you have $7, you owe 2. Have 7, owe 2. Well, when you give somebody away 2, you have 5 left. So 5 is the solution. Again, you don't need to do that to do 7 minus 2. I'm showing you that it works. The next example I have is a minus, and then this, because the parentheses here looks like it might be multiplication, but because of this minus, it's not multiplication. This is minus a negative number. So you go plus, and instead of putting a negative sign, since it's already negative, you make it a positive. So always making 2 marks in between the 2 numbers. You can go back to all of these. You made 2 marks between the 2 numbers. You made 2 marks between the 2 numbers. So this just simply says now 8 plus 4. Well, 8 plus 4 is 12. I have 2 more examples here. They're both fractions, so we're going to make common denominator. I like to pick the least common denominator. Well, I can't make the 6 a 9, and 6 times 2 is 12, and 9 doesn't become 12, but 6 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to pick 18 as my common denominator. I multiply by 2 to get the 18 here, so I'll multiply the top by 2, which gives me 16. 6 times 3 is 18, so I have to multiply the top times 3, which gives me negative 15. So I have minus, minus. Here's your minus sign. This is where you got to make your change. So you go plus, and it's already negative, so you make it plus again. So now what you really are doing is you're adding 16 plus 15, which is 31, and keeping your denominator of 18. Last example here. Go ahead and try to come up with the answer on your own. So pause it really quickly, see if you can come up with the answer. Common denominator again. I can make the 3 a 9, so I'm just going to make my common denominator be 9. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 4. 6 minus 4 is 2/9. You could change your sign to plus the opposite. It's not necessary. But if you do, you still say, I have $6, I owe somebody 4, I still have 2 left over. So 2/9 is the correct answer.